Welcome to another episode of As the Leader Grows. Listen, I want to jump right in this. I've got one of my super good friends. This is my brother from another mother in California, best-selling author, life and health coach, keynote speaker. This guy is one of the top builders in Orange County over the past 15 to 20 years, one of the top developers, an unbelievable human being, an entrepreneur, my guy, Keith Hale. What's up, big boy?
What's up, my brother Ken? How are you, baby?
Dude, tell the audience, you're in your Sprinter van, chilling
I'm in the
somewhere on the beach in California.
I'm in the van. I just left Laguna Beach. Actually, I went to the gym this morning, got me a workout lifetime,
Come
and
on.
then I went down to the beach to do some meditation to read. Kelly sends me. He does
Mhm.
the corresponding proverb for the corresponding day.
Yep.
So it was awesome. So today I got to read about some stuff, and what a blessing, man. You guys are blessings to me, man, sending me knowledge. So yeah, but yes, I'm in the van. I love the van, man, and here we go.
Let's make it happen. Hey, talk a little bit about your history, your background. I mentioned some of the stuff about being a developer. Share a little bit of your resume from some of the stuff you've done.
Yeah, man. I started off in Northern California, a little town called Danville. It was my hometown, just a gorgeous little place, just kind of a niche, if you will. Everyone knew everyone. It was just a beautiful place. And then when I got hurt playing football, I became a lender, and a friend's dad taught me the business, and I went off to the races, man. I was super successful. He kicked me out of the office within a couple of years, and I decided to start my own deal with a good friend of mine who was the top real estate agent at the time in the city. And I was lending the private money. He was doing the real estate side, and we killed it so much so that I retired at 28 years old for the first time. And then started buying real estate and realizing, wait a second, man, I'm pushing all this paper, and it's easier just to flip a house, right? And we were
Right.
making not a lot at the time, 25 to $50,000 per flip. And then I started, when the market crashed of '08, I had, a ton of real estate, and I lost a lot of it, and, lost, most of
Hmm.
my
Hmm.
things. And then a friend of mine's like, hey, I'm here at Newport. I was already visiting Newport Beach a lot because in the mortgage business, Irvine was considered like Wall Street South at the time. So all
Yeah.
the headquarters were here. So I was spending quite a bit of time here already. But I saw that if we could do things that had an ocean view, it would be more advantageous for profitability, and people, especially coming out of the country, wanted that. So I lost track, Ken, but over 300 successful projects,
Wow.
and during COVID, probably 100 and something. So I mean, it's real estate's been great to me, but it also has been
Yeah.
my Achilles heel too. So
Yeah.
you know,
Talk about what you mean by that, with it being your Achilles heel.
mean that my book, we're
Yep.
talking about today is
Mhm.
embracing vulnerability. Well, in the real estate, as you know, the mortgage business and the real estate business as a whole, it's all one. It's a very pretentious business, right?
Yep.
It's a look at me business. And for me, climbing that ladder in the business and becoming really successful, especially here in Orange County, when there's not that many guys that look like me that are successful in the real estate development side, or even real estate in general. I hate to say it, but here in Orange County at least. And so not living my true authentic self while I was
Mhm.
climbing myself to the top, not being, not always saying what was on my heart, and not living in the godly way that I wanted to. It just kind of got to me in the fact that I wasn't being authentic, and it drove me to the point where I didn't really want to live anymore. So
What do you think kept you from being authentic? What was the thing, Keith, that kept you from really sharing your truth?
I think, I think it's interesting. That's an interesting question because I think a lot of us don't even know we're not doing that.
All
You, you
right.
know,
I
and,
was
and
going to
so
get there. That's definitely where I was going. But what was the aha
yeah.
moment? Did you have an aha moment where you were like, "Holy cow, I'm not being me."
The moment I wanted to not live anymore, the morning I woke up and tried to take my life, I realized that I attributed that, looking back on it and spending a lot of time with myself over the last year and a half. I attribute that to, um, just knowing, like, I wanted to be authentic in certain situations and not being able to be authentic in those situations because
Mhm.
of financial gain, or
Mhm.
maybe not getting the deal, or
Mhm.
not closing it,
Mhm.
or not having the peer group that I was circled around, look at me and go, you know what, Keith is still doing pretty well. Right. I think, and it goes back to like the introduction of my book, boys don't cry.
Mm,
Right. And, we learn this at a young age. And so I go all the way back to childhood, right? 8 years old, fall down to the playground, scrape my knee, and all of a sudden a big older kid comes over, slaps me in the face, and calls me a bunch of names,
mm,
right? And tells me, boys don't cry, don't ever cry again. And then you hold all that in. So I think that as men in
yeah,
general, we're used to holding so many things in, right? And I think that is just, it's just what we do. Suck it up. Right? We all played
yeah,
sports, football,
yeah,
basketball, baseball, track. They say the exact same things. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Boy, hold it in, suck it up. All the things that we've heard our whole life, and as men, we just take it all on. We
yeah,
put all the pressure on ourselves, and over a long period of time, most of us don't want to admit it, but we're all having some sort of mental problem.
yeah, yeah.
I'm just the
Well,
one
life,
talking about it
the
now.
reality of it is, dude, is life's hard. Like life is not easy. And, as a kid, doing that on the playground is somebody making fun of you and hitting you and telling you boys don't cry. You grow up and especially going through all the coaches. I think about some of my coaches I had in high school, and this is back in the 80s. So it was way
Mm-hmm.
different than it is now. I mean, now you can't even say something to a kid as a coach or something like that and not get in trouble. But
Right.
when was the what was the in that moment when you attempted to take your own life, and after that, the holy cow, like I got to this place because I wasn't being my authentic self. What were some
Mm-hmm.
of the first things you did to change your behavior and your actions after that, Keith?
Well, it was interesting because as I was trying to take my life, as I'm sitting in the car in the garage, and I say this to be very explicit on purpose, because as part of my training as a QPR certified instructor, I speak about suicide and suicide prevention. The number one way to speak about it is to be authentic about what actually happened, because it's a taboo, especially in America. But it's important to talk about and be very descriptive on how you talk about it. So an interesting thing about that is the first time in a long time I actually called upon the Lord
Mm,
in a way that I did authentically was when I was trying to take my life that day. And so, the first thing I did afterwards is praise the Lord for keeping me alive.
mm,
I don't ask questions as to why. I'm just like, I'm here, I'm still here. So now I have to. So in my book and in the later chapters, I talk about surrender. So the first thing I did was say, okay, I'm still here because the grace, your grace,
mhm.
Lord, and I'm going to surrender now my life to you in a way that I've never done before. And that means, like we talked about Proverbs, right? Do not lean
Yeah.
upon your own understanding, right? And I think that this whole time
Mhm.
I go to church, like most of us, I went to
Yeah.
church on Sundays. I
Yeah.
listened to everything they said. I read my Bible verses, but I was reading them from my perspective as to
Right.
understanding the way I want to understand them and the way I want to apply them, not the way the Lord is asking me to do it. So the very first thing I did was surrender my life to the Lord.
I love that. Walk me through, like, after that, how light, if you will, or how carefree did you feel? Forgiven did you feel after that moment? And what were those next few weeks like for you?
It was the first time that I was able to stand up to people that were picking on me, so to speak, right?
Mm,
Investors, business partners that I had deals with, big real estate deals that caused a lot of confusion, a lot of headache, a lot of
mhm,
just mad stress. And I was able for the first time to say, you know what? I will step away from this now. This is no longer my calling, right?
mhm.
Which I did not have the courage or the authenticity within myself to speak that way to them. And I think that was a huge wake up call for me, because
Wow.
that in itself took so much weight off my back. I wasn't able to do it before. I
Mm,
was so worried about the outcome, and I had to make this much money, and I had to, do another deal. But being able to go to them and say, I'm done. I
mm.
don't care anymore. I choose the Lord, and then I choose me,
Wow.
was huge.
I love that. So that happens. How long ago was that, Keith?
It'll be 2 years in December, January 8th. It'll be 2 years. So
And then, so from that point forward, when was the idea or the concept about your book birthed in your heart?
Well, I think, talking to a lot of people, a lot of friends of mine that had a lot of resources, I was seeing like these high powered counselors and stuff. And I
Mhm.
realized that in those appointments, like it was good to like talk to someone, but there was no action. There was no action.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
where's the action? And then, as an ex athlete, I want to know if I run through that hole,
Yeah,
make it,
yeah.
make a dash left and cut up like you told me to, I'm gonna score a touchdown, right?
Yeah.
And in counseling, it was just like, okay, we're going to keep practicing and we're never going to play a game and we're never going to score touchdowns. And that for me didn't work. And so I started
Mhm.
realizing, I wonder how many other people out there are going to counselors. And no offense to any counselors that are watching
Mhm.
this. It's no offense. It's just what
We
you've
would
been
we
taught.
would call that talk therapy.
Talk therapy.
So,
Yeah.
man, I've done talk therapy a lot, and
Yeah.
I've done somatic therapy. I've done some other types of therapy that literally the NLP, the results are,
Yeah.
I mean, after an hour, you're a different human being. It really
Yeah.
does some deep work at a
Right.
subconscious level.
Yeah, you're able to feel things that you haven't felt before. But for me, it was, I wanted an outcome. So then I started writing down my thoughts, right? I started writing down how I was feeling. I started writing
Mhm.
down the word surrender. And I started thinking to myself, like, I'm a Landmark graduate, 20 years, I'm a PSI graduate, I'm a Hoffman graduate. So I have the information in my
Yeah.
mind. I
Yeah.
just wasn't applying it the way, like, wasn't applying it in the realm of my life. I could fix everyone else's problems in 2 seconds, right? But I couldn't fix my own. And so that's the first time when I started sitting down and writing words like surrender. What does that actually mean to me?
Mhm.
Right? What
Mhm.
does it actually mean? Right? So I'm saying it, but am I living it? Right? And then talking about, being, vulnerable and authentic and living for the now, which is so important to me because I've heard so many people say this, but we don't do it, right? And then listen to Tony Robbins and listen to this, a lot of the other
Mhm.
people that I sometimes listen to, and just realizing, like, you know what, if I have today, am I living today the way that if it was my last day on earth, am I living today the way I'd want this to end?
I
And then
love that.
all of it changed in that moment. And every morning I'm like, you know what? Today I'm going to live. If it's my last day on earth, I'm going to tell the folks I love them. I'm going to do the things that may impact. And I realized that I was making a lot of money, but I had no impact on society or on anyone that cared about me. And that's what hit me the hardest. I
Mhm.
almost took my life. My children, who are superstars, would have been without a father,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And yet they would have never really known what I really stood for,
Wow.
except building a bunch of houses that, yeah, I mean, it's cool. It's a cool thing to do, right? Flipping houses, it's cool,
Yeah, yeah.
but it's not my legacy. It's not actually who I am. So that's
Well,
when the idea for the
that was the
book.
word I was about to use, was legacy.
Yeah.
So in that process, you said, I'm going to write a book and teach people and help people walk through a difficult season like you did, come
Yeah.
out of a suicide attempt on the other side, alive, whole, healthy, forgiven, new relationship with Christ. Like, you're doing things you've never done before, but with some action steps. And what I always tell people is, can you put handlebars on that for me? Put cookies on the bottom shelf. Tell me what I need to do. And if you'll tell me and show me, I will do what I need to do. So tell me about the book, dude. Walk me through a
Yeah.
little bit of the book.
So here's the book again.
That's a
It's
good looking dude
embracing.
on that cover right there, bro.
Thanks, man. Yeah.
Look at that dude.
That was one of my better days right there,
Come on.
Um, so embracing vulnerability, 10 steps to authentic life, and it's basically essentially what I was having to do. So the way the book came about was by me writing down different things. And as I'm writing them down, I'm like, you know what? I think other people would benefit from this.
Mm,
So as I'm making my own notes that are helping myself, like, it's the first journey was to put the oxygen mask on
mhm.
myself,
Yep.
right? And so to help myself, and as I'm helping myself, I realize, you know what? Like, it's all about the action, right? And it's funny because when I went to go hang out with Greg a couple weeks ago, and I was listening to Brian Smith, the founder of UGG, and he
Mhm.
said something that hit me, and this already hit me, but he put it into words.
Mm,
He said, one of the saddest days of his life is when he sold the company, right?
mm,
And it was so unfulfilling. And I'm like thinking to myself, like, dude, you sold a company for, millions of dollars, but it hit me. And like you said, the enjoyment was about the journey. It wasn't about the outcome, you know.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like looking at, where am I at in the journey, and the journey is never going to stop, because the journey is to heal myself, which I would say that I'm still not out of the woods yet. You know what I mean? I still have to live these things by being authentic, by being vulnerable, by living for today, by surrendering, right? By writing down feelings and needs, right? Marshall Rosenberg, I studied his stuff like implicitly,
Hmm.
because like, when people call, like, you ask the question, how's your heart, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's an interesting question, because most people say, how are you doing?
Hmm.
And we all say, I'm doing okay. I'm tired, but we don't
Hmm.
say what's on our mind. And when we do you see the reaction in people's face?
Hmm.
If you
Hmm.
were asking me how I'm doing today, I say I'm suicidal. Most people turn around and run away from me. You know,
Yeah.
and so I realized, like, looking at your feelings, your internal feelings, and how you actually feel, right? So today I woke up, I wasn't feeling the best, right? I went to the gym. I'm a little down, right? Being authentic, I'm not 100%. I'm a
Hmm.
little
Hmm.
heavy in my heart about certain things that are happening in life, right? And so then you're able to understand how you're actually feeling. Most people walk around life like everything's okay, because they have to show
Yeah.
the world that everything's okay, but it's not okay, right?
Yeah. They
And
want to
then so then
suppress those things. I think a lot of times they want to suppress those things, Keith, because they don't know how to deal with them,
Exactly.
because they
Yeah.
haven't had something like your book to be able to go, or a
Yeah.
therapist or a friend they can talk to that can help them kind of flesh out what an action plan looks like.
Right. And understanding your feelings, and then what are your needs, right? You know what I mean? And your needs are something that most people will still look out there for what they need in here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. So first, it's for me, it's being a Christian, it's God first, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my first need is to pray to God and see how this day can unfold. And the second thing is, how can I meet my needs on my own?
Mm.
And that's the key. That was the game changer. And my cousin, who's a counselor and he does similar to what we do, he hit this home in my head. When I was at my worst, he flew across the country to come be
Yeah.
with me, and
Yeah.
showed up, didn't talk about it, but came from New York and showed up on my doorstep and said, we're going to do these exercises until you feel better.
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
like, this ain't going to work, dude. And all of a sudden, man, within a few days, I was like,
Yeah.
dude, like,
Yeah.
who am I? Who am I? By just understanding how I'm actually feeling, and then what I actually need, and how I can give that to myself. Right.
Mm.
So I talk a lot about that in the book, forgiveness, right? Most of us walk around with something that we did in the past, right? Or something that someone did to us. We hold on to this grudges, right? Like the Bible says, you have to forgive
Mhm.
so you can then
Mhm.
be
Mhm.
forgiven, right?
Mhm.
By the Father. And the thing is that we don't do this, right? Most of us either forgive someone else because we've moved on from that situation, whether it be a loved one, a relationship, or what have you, but we don't forgive ourselves.
Mm.
And that's we carry a lot of guilt around. And I
Yeah.
realized, for me, another thing that was attributed to my depression was all the guilt I was carrying around by things that didn't work in my life, that I was holding on to, holding myself responsible for.
What was the key for you to understand forgiveness, Keith, to be able to forgive yourself?
I mean, really reading the Bible and understanding, how Jesus lived while he was on earth, what's commanded on us and why. And again, that surrender piece, right, means that I have to forgive, and that
Yeah.
includes myself, because the thing is, like, what's it say? Faith without works is dead,
Mhm.
right? So
Mhm.
faith without
Mhm.
works is dead. So I cannot do the works, right, if I'm still holding on to things that are making me feel guilty, because that's holding me from the work. And
Mhm.
so I think just understanding, more about what the Bible actually says, and dissecting it
Mhm.
and writing it down, and listening to the word, and then understanding that, holding on to this stuff is only hurting me. It's not hurting anybody else. And I think I
Yeah.
I was mad at my exes. I was mad at, I was mad at all
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
things, but
Dude, it's so easy.
it's so easy. And being able to forgive them is forgiving myself, right?
Yeah.
Because, we've all moved on. However, it's just that, there's all these things that happen to us in life, and then going back, I mean, I wrote about this in my book, going back to 8 years old, 9 years old, when my teacher, I was a special ed student, right? I couldn't put blocks together like other students could, so they thought something was wrong with me. And it was an interesting thing because I was actually a popular kid at school, but I rode the short bus, everyone made fun of, and I had
Yeah.
kids that had cerebral palsy and all these different things, and it was sad, right? It was a sad thing, but it was a very humbling, and it put me in a very vulnerable place, which was
Yeah.
scary. It was so scary, but
Yeah.
listening to a teacher that told me, and then this is like, they'll have jobs for people like you,
Mm-hmm. Mm.
and I held on to that as anger. I held on to that, which, part of that made me successful because I was like, you know what? I would hear that teacher tell me that. And then when I heard that teacher tell me that, I'd work 4 more hours, right? So, as the mortgage business used to be, we were all workaholics, and then we go out drinking
Yeah.
afterwards, and we do this all week, and then the weekends we all get together and do some more of it, right? So it was very unhealthy. But I became a workaholic, which also attributed to my depression, but I only did that because I didn't graduate from college. I
Mm-hmm.
got hurt in the football field. I didn't feel good enough. I couldn't cry and be vulnerable. So instead, I'll show the world how great I am by making myself
Yeah.
super successful. But that took, working sometimes
Man,
15,
I
18
heard
hours a day.
my pastor here in Atlanta, Mayo Sowell. I heard Mayo a couple weeks ago talk about because we hear this a lot, especially in the entrepreneurial world. Prove
Yeah.
it to them, show it to them. If they don't believe in you, you use that as fuel. And I heard him say, he goes, anytime you prove, it always leads to pride.
Mm, I like
Anytime
that.
you prove, it always leads to pride. Because
I
what
like that.
happens is you're like, oh, Keith don't believe me. I'm going to show him. Oh, my
Right.
teachers didn't believe in me. I'm going to show them. And then you
Mm,
do it. And once you're successful, you start taking the credit instead of, as a faith-based entrepreneur, going, man, God, you're so good that you allowed me to do
right.
this. And it's your
Right.
strength that gave me the ability to be able to do that. Well, dude, talk real quick.
Absolutely.
We got a couple minutes left. Get quick shout out on your book. Where can they find it? How can they get in
Yeah.
touch with you, my friend?
Yeah, it's on Amazon right now under Embracing Vulnerability 10 Steps to an Authentic Life. Please go get it. If you do, please leave a review.
Yeah.
That'd be great. To see how you enjoyed the book or what I could have done differently, because I'm gonna hopefully do another book. At Keith Hale on Instagram. I'm studying. I'm almost finished with my certifications to do some different things in life. I'm already a health and life coach, but I'm furthering that message along. And so, my goal, Ken, is just to, I would say I lived the first half of my life selfishly for me,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
It got me nowhere. I'm living the second half of my life for you,
Yeah, I
right?
love it.
So my goal in the book is to help other people. My goal in being a life coach is to help people realize there is another way, that men can be authentic. Women, you can
Yeah.
better
Yeah.
understand us. I want to help everybody. And then being, healthy, we have to have a healthy body, a healthy mind creates, a healthy body, and vice versa. And so, giving back to the populace of people that don't have a way or aren't humble enough yet to say I need help. And my goal is to just help everybody. Suicide in this country is out of control. Our
Yeah.
youth, right? They're looking towards us to help them. Before they, the song "Children Are Our Future." Not anymore. We
Yeah.
are their future, because we have to now guide them and show them, because the world is lost. The devil is at work,
Yeah.
and his plan is playing out before us all. So we have to
You
help
and
this
you and
this
I have looked
populace
at
now.
the suicide rates. I believe it was over 70% of
Mm-hmm.
all suicides, 65 or 70 were men.
We're men. Yeah.
Was men because
Yeah.
because of the weight we carry. We've got a
Yeah.
lot of faith-based entrepreneurs, especially men, that listen to this podcast. Some of the guys that are listening to this podcast right now have been contemplating suicide, have been contemplating the world be better, have been contemplating my family would be better if I wasn't here. What do you say to them, Keith?
Um, I would say, one, I love you. You are loved, my brothers, my sisters, and there is a different way you can reach out. You can call me directly. I'll talk to you any time of the day. But what I would say to that is, I've been there, and the world isn't better without you in it. It's just you have to invoke the change, because your pain can be turned into passion, like I did for me. Right? It still hurts, And my quote is, just because I'm hurting doesn't mean I'm weak. You're just human. You're a human being that's hurting. So,
Yeah.
and I just lived it. A dear friend, dear friend of mine committed suicide not long ago.
Yeah.
And, and watching the aftermath on the children, being firsthand and watching the family go through this and the children go through this. And I will say that it's never the answer. And the other thing I will say, which I did not know this and most don't, but do you know suicide attempts and thoughts are 100% curable?
Mm.
Unlike anything else, right? Nothing else is 100% curable, but this
Yeah.
is
Crazy.
100% if you get the right help when you need it, and we all need to humble ourselves and say, you know what? We need help. I need help. You need help. And we're here. Ken, you're here. You're
Yeah.
here to pray over people. And the biggest thing I would say is someone is listening to this and knows someone who's feeling this way. Don't make their feelings wrong. Just be there for them. Listen to them, and then give someone like myself a call, and we'll reach out and we'll get it figured out together.
I love that. Dude, I love you, man.
I love you
Proud of
too,
you,
brother.
dude. I'm
I
proud
love
of
you
you,
too,
man.
man. Thank
Yeah, I'm
you.
proud of you. At Keith Hale Guys on Instagram. We'll tag that. We'll put a link in the show notes for the book at Amazon, Embracing Vulnerability, 10 Steps to Kicking Life in the Ass. Is that what the name of it is?
Hey, man, we all need it. We all need a swift kick, man.
Come on, baby. 10
I call
steps.
you when I need a kick, man.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. Embracing Vulnerability, guys. Hit Amazon, grab a copy. I got a copy the day they went on sale. At Keith Hale, guys, check him out. He's doing some amazing things. God's using him in a big time way. Keith, I love you, buddy. Thanks for joining us today.
Love you too, brother. Have a nice day.
Guys, thanks for joining us on another episode of As the Leader Grows. As always, do me a favor. The number one way you can support our show, and thank you for doing that, is by, and we hit the top 2% of all podcasts last month in the United States. Take a screenshot, share this episode with 3 to 5 people that you know that need to hear about this subject, whether it be suicide, whether it be entrepreneurship and the depression and anxiety that can come along with it. Share this episode for us. I love you. We'll see you next week on As the Leader Grows.